This is the Speakeasy Podcast, your number one show for the behind the scenes on what it means to have this successfully paid journey as an author or speaker. I am your host, Savise Pelzer, the voice coach, founder of the World Voice League. And guys, listen, let's talk about it. Ads. I know some of you just rolled your eyes at the phone, at the screen, wherever you're listening at this moment. You just rolled your eyes because you just said, I tried it and it didn't work. Well, listen, that is why I have the most bestest, yes, I said bestest, guest for you guys today. So I'm super excited because our guest name is Spanky.
And I'm better than bestest. I'm more gooder.
There you go. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's how we go in. So introduce yourself to the studio audience, and then we got to jump right into where did Spanky come from?
Okay, well, why don't we start there? Because that way people don't have this uneasy vision in their head of, oh my God, how did this guy wind up with a nickname like Spanky? He's certainly not a little kid. No. So go back. It's New York City, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. I'm sitting there, and I had an uncle who came prepared with this propeller beanie and slapped it on top of my head. They took a picture, captioned it, because when I was a kid, I was a butterball, and I looked like Spanky from the Little Rascals. And so the captioned picture was taken when I was 4 years old, and it stuck. And the nickname stuck. And I thought the nickname was going to die when he died, and it didn't. But it served me really well because I've spent most of my career in the creative industry, and people will never remember Ken Moskowitz, my given name, but they will always remember Spanky, right? It's very hard to remember an adult with the nickname Spanky. So even on my suit jackets, instead of having my name, I have a tailor he's a client who does these really awesome suits. And if you ever see my pink jacket, it says Spanky on the lining on the inside. My name is there. So it's legit. It's on my book cover, right? It's on every piece of content and social media that I'm a part of because I am my nickname. My nickname is me. I identify with that, and I'm totally comfortable with it at this point. Now, when I was a kid, totally scarred, needed years of therapy. Oh my God, therapists got wealthy off of my family and all of the counseling I had to go through. But there were lots of other reasons. But that's not what this podcast is about, is it?
Wait, so I'm gonna, just because you disclosed that, I will disclose that I have a nickname so I understand, because I have an aunt, and even though I am almost 40 years old right now at the time of this episode, she still calls me Woo Woo.
Woo Woo? Woo Woo?
Woo Woo. When I was little, she was in the mirror and she was trying on dresses, and I was trying to whistle. And so I was saying, woo, woo.
Because you were whistle deficient. So you had an inability to whistle. So instead of trying to whistle, instead of making noises that sounded like a whistle, you just said, woo, woo.
Hey, woo, woo.
Hey, at least you have a good story. A lot of people come up to me and they look at me and they go, Spanky, huh? How'd you get that nickname? And I'm like, it's not what you think.
Exactly, right?
It's really not that exciting.
But it's interesting because you said, well, that's not what this podcast is about. But it actually is for this particular episode, because when it comes to writing ads, let's just be honest. So many people think, oh, well, if I just get what I saw somebody else do, that'll work for me. But you're not Spanky.
No, you're not. I think a lot of people tend to, when they think about ads, they go right to the sales pitch rather than telling a story, rather than creating an emotional connection. See, for me, when I am writing an ad or speaking on stage, I love to tell stories. My book is really telling little micro stories throughout the entire book. And the reason is that because stories help your consumer, your target audience connect emotionally with you, right? It connects on so many levels because everyone can empathize and feel and experience what you went through or are going through or are speaking about. Like somebody asked me recently, I was speaking at a conference in New Orleans. I could have lied and made up another city. I had to dig for it, but I remembered it not too long ago. And he asked me about my why. Like, how do you get motivated in the morning? What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? And a lot of people, it's fashionable that they say, oh, you know, my why is my wife and my children. And yes, they are absolutely important. And they are the reason I do what I do, because I support them. I fund the circus, right? But that's not my why. See, my why is I am so appreciative that I get to wake up in the morning and take a breath, because I almost didn't after a car accident in October of 1987. And so though I have pain and ongoing back injuries and have to, had back surgery and have had potentially facing another surgery, I am so grateful for the fact that I can wake up in the morning and just go, and I'm here, right? And I'm not hooked up to life support and I'm breathing. And so when I told that story, I told it from a very different perspective. And I could see the audience really getting kind of pulled in. I could see them sitting up on their chair. And you know how when you're engaging in a conversation with someone and you're telling them something that's fascinating, they do the lean, right? They lean in. And I saw that. And that's the goal of everything I try to write, right? I want to write things that have the lean in effect. I want people to go, oh, whether it's funny or a story that engages you to buy, to write, whatever it is, I want you to lean into it, because that tells me that we've got your attention. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to try to sell you in that first transaction. It doesn't mean that, oh, just because you saw this ad, I want you to buy today. No, it's building the relationship. It's me showing up for the first date, not ready to jump into bed or put a ring on your finger. It's me showing up for the first date with flowers and saying, hey, I'd like to date you. I'd like to court, right? That's the difference. And most marketers really screw that up.
Now, that speaks volumes, because with your company, you've been able to do not just that for yourself, of course, but you've been able to do that for other companies. And even though that's your why, what made you want to do it for other people, not just for yourself?
It was a total accident. So let me go back. My career, my history is so odd, and how I got to where I am today, to most people, is a very interesting journey. To me, it's just the path that my life has always been on. And I didn't realize until probably a year ago that, oh my God, I've been doing this exact thing since I was 12, right? So I've been doing what it is that I love since I was 12. So let me take you back to Queens, New York, okay, on 166th Street, right off of Union Turnpike. For those of you that are in New York that know the area, right near St. John's University, I'm in my bedroom. And my parents go to the beach every weekend. They go to Rockaway Beach. And I hated going to the beach as a kid. Remember, I was the butterball, okay? I was a fat kid, didn't want to go to the beach, didn't like being at the beach. It was sandy, it was gross, and I was there all day, and I was hot and miserable, and there was too many other people. So I stayed home, and I made mixtapes in my bedroom. But my mixtapes weren't music tapes. I liked doing ads. So I grew up listening to the radio, listening to stations in New York like WCBS FM and WPLJ. And I grew up listening to those DJs and listening to the live commercials and listening to the recorded commercials. And I was fascinated how these 60 seconds, which seems like an eternity now, but these 60-second ads would grab your attention and take you on a journey if they were done well. If they were done poorly, they were just noise and you'd block them out. But right, the ones that were good, you would go, oh, wow. Like I remember, if you grew up when I grew up, now I'm 52. So if you're in your 40s to 50s and you grew up on the East Coast, you may have heard of an electronics chain called Crazy Eddie, right? You're muted. I lost you. Crazy Eddie. Yeah, you muted yourself.
I didn't want to interrupt you because I'm like sitting here nodding my head like, yeah, I remember that.
Right. So Crazy Eddie. So the guy who used to do their ads, his name, Jerry Carroll. And Jerry had this unique style and ability to deliver their message. And he would be on the camera in a blue blazer with a gray turtleneck. And this was the shtick, but it was so memorable. It was Crazy Eddie. His prices are so low, he's practically giving it all away. Shop around, get the best prices you can find, then go to Crazy Eddie and he'll beat them, right? So super animated. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to kill you with that burst of energy. But Crazy Eddie, his messages were so memorable, right? Unfortunately, they went bankrupt like a lot of electronic chains did back then, but they're gone. But I spent a lot of time as a kid recreating commercials in my bedroom. And then the same uncle who gave me the nickname, the one that I really didn't like as a kid, when I was bar mitzvahed, now this is going to sound a little creepy, so just hear the story out, okay? Don't start judging as you're halfway through the story. In the middle of my party I think it was the Lions Gate is where my party was out in Long Island. I go to the restroom and my uncle slips into the restroom behind me and he goes, "Hey." I'm like, "What?" And he pulls this envelope out of his jacket and he hands it to me. And he's like, "Shh, don't tell your parents about this." And I'm like, "What's this?" He goes, "I put your bar mitzvah gift in there. This is for you." And I'm like, "Oh." And it was an envelope with some cash. And it was enough cash for me to go to the Wiz and go to Crazy Eddie and buy all of the equipment I needed to create a full production studio in my bedroom.
Wow.
So, even though my experience with him as a kid was like, I hated him, but at that moment he became my favorite person, because if it wasn't for Uncle Hi, I would not be in the career that I am in today. So I'm making radio commercials and I thought I am going to be the best DJ in the world. I was making jingles and doing all sorts of things, and I was going to be in the radio business. And so I went right exactly where I wanted to go. I started my career, went into the broadcast industry, started DJing on the air, not like wiki, wiki, wiki at the clubs. DJing in the radio station is very different. Did you like that? Wiki, wiki, wiki.
Definitely.
That's my scratching. It's not that good, believe me. So I go into the radio business and I find that I love doing what I'm doing, but I still love writing commercials. And one day the production director is going on vacation and I had the opportunity to step into the production studio while he was on vacation. And that was it. I was in love. And because it felt like home to me, literally like home to me on 166th Street. And so that's where I stayed. And I transitioned my career into that of a production director, creative director, and moved up the chain in the broadcast industry. And that's where I spent most of my career until, like a wrestler, I tapped out in 2011 and ventured out on my own. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the long version of it. And then how AdZombies began. This is where I talk about accidents, right? Now, let me reframe this. I don't believe in accidents. I think that everything happens for a reason. There are no accidents, right? There are no coincidences. It's like there's a reason that we meet people in life. There's a reason that we connect. There's a reason that bad things happen.
Exactly.
Good things happen. And so I'm in a Facebook group. It was March 6, 2017. And this dude posted, and it was a dude. I call him dude. I don't remember his name. Dude posts an ad in this group and says, "My ad's not working. Can somebody help me?" And so what do people naturally do? They go on the defense and they start telling you what a crappy ad it is. And that's what people were doing. Yeah, this ad really does suck. No wonder it's not working. Well, wait, he just asked you for help and you're crapping on him. This is stupid. So I went in and in the comments section of that Facebook post, shared my thoughts on why the ad wasn't converting. And here's the way I would rewrite it. And I rewrote the ad in the comments. That got about 10, maybe 12 people that initially said, "Wow, where did you learn to write like that? I wish I could write like that. That's so cool." And for me, I wasn't trying to sell. I was telling a story. And so here's the kind of interesting part. The ad was for a plastic surgeon. And he was looking for women who were in need of or wanted breast augmentation, enhancement, maybe a rebuild after cancer, things like that. But the ad was written from a guy's perspective. And for any guys in your audience, we all know guys love boobs, but you can't sell the services of an incredible plastic surgeon by telling a booby story, right? You have to connect to the woman's heart. You have to connect to her heart, and you have to which then helps connect to the brain. And where guys are kind of reversed, guys, you start with the logic and then move here. Women, you start here and then move there. And so I thought, okay, who would want the services of this plastic surgeon? Let's talk about a woman who maybe survived cancer and had a mastectomy or a double mastectomy, and she wants to feel whole again, right? She wants to feel herself. And then there are people who have body dysmorphia and self-image issues that don't like the way they look in the mirror, right? So there's a whole gamut of reasons, and you have to speak in a very connected, emotional, almost first-person perspective. So I told a story of a woman who transformed her body, who transformed her life because she had this surgery, right? I told a story. Now, she was a fictitious character, just like Pat the intern on the Toyota commercials is not a real character, but he's their character. But I told that story, and it's a very emotional way to connect with your audience. And so from that simple act of rewriting the ad and a bunch of people saying, I wish I could write like that. How did you learn to write like that? I simply offered to help anyone who needed help with copywriting. And by the end of that weekend had, I don't know if it was like 100 requests for help from marketers all over the world. And a business was born. A happy accident, as Bob Ross would call it.
And what's interesting is that a lot of times, so many people, because I know the majority of our audience are those who are looking to start a business, or they've just started a business. They're in their first 5 years of being in business as an entrepreneur, or we'll quote it, quotations, entrepreneur.
Right.
And when you come into it, a lot of times it's here's this gimmick, use this gimmick, use that gimmick.
Gimmicks and tactics.
Right. Look at this here. This is get 100,000 people on your email list tomorrow. And they end up wasting a whole lot of time, energy, and money in following this kind of rat race around. I love that you were saying that in the beginning, it wasn't even about a dollar sign. It wasn't even about, it was about, okay, you have a need. Let me fulfill the need. This is what's going on. This is what I see as, something that can help you. This is how I can serve you. And it turned into something greater. And I think even in the speaking industry and in the writing industry, there are so many people that come in and it's flipped.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be your advice for them to flip it back the other way?
So stop thinking about what can I get out of this relationship and how much can I earn from this, and start thinking about what can I give. See, because if you give, and that's why, it's interesting. The title of my book is called Jab Till It Hurts, How Following Gary Vaynerchuk's Advice Helped Me Build a 7-Figure Brand, right? Jab in Gary's world is giving, right? And so his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, by the way, totally asked permission for the title, got his permission, got his blessing, have met with him several times, been to the office, had dinner with him. He's an amazing, amazing entrepreneur, super awesome dude. Another dude, see, I call people dudes and shit. Anyway, but give, right? If you give without the expectation of receiving something in return, amazing things happen. And I didn't ever set out. See, Altavis, you have to understand something. I didn't start out with the intention of starting a business. I had another business. But what happened was, this is what I've been doing since I was a kid. This is my natural go-to. This is my default, right? It's like everybody, if you think about it, when you get up in the morning, like when you get dressed, and if you're putting on jeans, you don't even know this, but you always put the same leg in first, right? That's your default. And so this is my default. So I just fell back to what I know inherently. And I did what I wanted to do, which was help this person because the ad was shit. And, and you cannot sell people when you have a poorly worded ad that has no emotional connection.
Yeah, most definitely. It's we always laugh about it when we talk about, storytelling as a speaker, storytelling as an author. That's what you do. That's always what you do. Because it's either you're telling a story to somebody else or you're going to tell it to yourself because nobody's going to buy it.
That's right. And so when you start out, whatever that journey is that you're starting on, right? You're starting a small business. You're an entrepreneur, right? By the way, the entrepreneur thing, we should go back to that in a minute. I'm really uncomfortable being called an entrepreneur, but we'll visit that in a moment. When you're starting out a business, if your focus is on the dollars and the money, you're going to lose, because instead of focusing on that, if you focus on the outcome of the people you're trying to help, if you focus on their outcome, the outcome of that will be income. But if you focus on income, the outcome won't be good.
Oh, I like that. Repeat that one more time.
If you focus on the outcome, then the outcome will be income. But if you focus on the income, the outcome won't be good.
Wow. I think, that hit the nail on the head completely, like utterly.
So, and that's kind of how this thing began. I mean, and from there, it just grew and is growing. And, in the beginning, it was painful, like, because I had no systems, no processes, all those things, the struggles that you go through in a startup. And we're still figuring this crap out today, right? It's only 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 years later, but we're constantly evolving. We're constantly improving our processes, trying to find efficiencies, and we're testing new things to see, hey, does this work better than this? You're split testing, you're A/B testing your own process. And so when you build something, build it not with the intent of crushing it and becoming a multi-billionaire. Build it with the intent of helping one person, which will then turn into 2, which will turn into 4 and 8 and 16, right? It's like a rock. If you were to take a pebble and drop it in the most placid lake, the ripples of that pebble start small. But as it gets further away from the deployment, it gets bigger and bigger and actually has a greater impact on more people, right? On more, the waves, you don't feel the waves when you're in the boat a half a mile away, but eventually that ripple makes it to you. And it's like, oh, what's that gentle ripple? Yeah, that came from that little drop in the water, right? So I see things in weird ways. But again, as I'm sharing this with you, what am I doing? I'm telling a story.
Exactly. It's so interesting that you would say that, because my third book, that's what it was, the ripple effect. And that's one of my favorite conversations that I've ever had with my children, was that whatever action you take, whatever reaction you have, is always going to be that drop. It's going to be that rock that's thrown in, and the ripples go out. And even if you drop in another pebble, another rock, it doesn't immediately stop the first set of ripples.
Right.
They still go. They still affect, everything and everybody around you. So it's definitely something to think about. And I think that as business owners, we have to understand that same thing. It can be that one conversation. It can be that one chance meeting, that one interaction. Just helping that one person can put you into such a better position, as opposed to you trying to scheme and deal and, scam away into. Yep. I can't use what I was about to say. Wait.
It's all right. But I know where you're going with that. And so it's all about the intent and what you put out there, and right.
Exactly.
And go with appreciation and gratitude and helping people. And it's remarkable what happens. And I'll give you a really, I think, a good example of that. So go back to when this business first started. As we were growing rapidly and painfully, I had sent out an email to Gary Vaynerchuk, and I emailed him to say thank you for something. He always puts out very thoughtful content, and it seems that the algorithm or the alignment of the planets always puts the right content in front of me on the right days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, it's funny when you need to hear something or see something. You know, yesterday there was something going on in my life, in my thoughts, and this piece of content from Cy Wakeman, she's an amazing HR person and speaker, shows up in my feed, right? Those are like, wow, how does that happen? But I had sent Gary an email and I said, hey, I just wanted to say thank you for this piece of content. It was a specific piece of content that showed up. And I said, you know, when I come back to New York, my old hometown, I would love to take you out to dinner as a thank you. That's all it was. And I got an email back within 5 minutes from him that said, hey, my schedule is packed, but I've got this dinner coming up at Wine Library. Would love to have you come. CC Kim Garcia on his team. And the next thing you know, I'm flying to New York to have dinner with Gary and 30 small business owners in this private wine room at City Winery, right? That's how these things happen. And my intent was just to say thank you and have dinner with you and to buy you dinner, right? And I wind up going to New York and getting some of the best business advice I've ever had.
It makes me go back and think thoughtfulness matters.
100%.
Thoughtfulness matters. Now, you made the statement earlier that you kind of have like this twinge of, you know, squirmish feeling when you're being called an entrepreneur. Where did that come from?
Okay. No, it's more than a twinge. Okay, so if you're watching this or listening to this, if you've ever had like a hemorrhoid, that's how it feels to me. I don't know why I went there. It just does. It's a discomfort, right? Something you can't get away from. I'm just trying to think of something. That was the first thing that popped into my mind. Don't ask why, but that's where I went. Okay, so here's why. So back in January, I spent 5 days with Tony Robbins and his team at Business Mastery. And, you know, Tony, one of the questions that he asked is, you know, who are you? And that's a really deep question. Not like I'm a 52-year-old father of 5. No, like in the business world, like who are you? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a manager, a process person, or are you a creative? Are you an entertainer? Are you, you know, is that? And I'm like, well, I'm really a creative person. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I have this business that I run and have built and I'm building. So therefore, to the outside world, I'm an entrepreneur. But I'm not comfortable with that because the reality is that I'm not. I have entrepreneurial tendencies, right? So for me, it's all about my craft. It's all about what I do. And it's not about the dollars and cents and the risk and reward. And for entrepreneurs, it's all about that. So let me give you some clarification. And Tony shared this story, and I'm going to do my best to reshare the story with you. I blogged about it before because it's such a great story, but it's a great tell as far as entrepreneurs and what is an entrepreneur. So Tony was invited by Steve Wynn, the hotel and casino guy, to the grand opening of this brand new luxury hotel and casino somewhere in Asia. And it was his like, you know, hey, Tony, come on out. I want you to see this. They're friends, and he wanted him to see this firsthand. And so Tony flew out. And now Steve Wynn, for those of you that don't know, he's losing his vision and has been for years. So not his creative vision, but his physical vision. And so he was holding Tony's arm, and they were walking around, and he could see his casino and knew what things were based on that, and is pointing to this fixture and that thing. And they go into the high stakes room. And the high stakes room, by the way, not a room that I would ever be in. Gambling makes me like, I could throw up if I lost $1. I would just be in the fetal position. I don't like that kind of risk.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's like donating money. I don't want to donate money to a casino. Anyway, they go into the high stakes room, and this guy sitting at the table loses in one hand $10 million. Now, if I lost $10 million, I would die. I would like literally be, that's it. I'd game over. But this guy didn't. He didn't even wince. And he turned around and he saw Steve Wynn and Tony Robbins standing there. And he got up from the table. And again, I'm doing my best to recreate the story as Tony tells it. He goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. Can I take a picture with you?" And as he walked up, Tony extended his hand to shake his hand. And the guy went over to Steve Wynn and put his arm around Steve Wynn, the guy who he just lost $10 million to, and said, "I love your casinos. These are the only places I gamble at, I stay at, da, 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 da." Now, you have to understand, that is an entrepreneur. It's all about the risk and reward, right? That's what they live for. I can't stomach that type of risk. I can stomach a little bit of risk, right? But the rewards and the risk are I have a different tolerance level.
Exactly.
And so for a business to be successful, you need all three components. You need an entrepreneur, the risk reward person. You need an operations or manager, right? Somebody who can handle the operational side. And then you need the creative, the dreamer, the artist. And I am the artist. And so I'm an artist with entrepreneurial tendencies. And I think knowing who you are as a business owner, see, now I'm not saying entrepreneur, as a business owner, I think knowing who you are is critical to your long-term success. Because if you don't know who you are and you try to act in a way that you are not wired, you're going to fail. Which is why so many small businesses, by the way, 80% of all businesses are started by, what would you think? Artists, entrepreneurs, or operations people?
I would probably say artists, but
That's right, artists. And that is why so many businesses fail, because artists are getting in, like, I'm a terrible business person. Like, I mean, terrible. I don't like math. If I didn't have 10 fingers, I'd be screwed. And thank God I've got 10 toes so I can count to 20, right? But I am an artist. I live for my craft. All right, so let's do a quick quiz. Altavis, is Tony Robbins an entrepreneur or an artist? I'm going to take away the middle one. Is he an entrepreneur or an artist?
I think he's more of an entrepreneur. He
55 businesses, $60 billion in revenue, and he's an artist.
Yeah, I would have to say, yeah. Thinking about, you know why? Immediately when you think Tony Robbins, you think of him speaking on stage. And I completely, shut out. You completely shut out some of the other things that he does. Yep. But when you think about it, and
yeah, he is a total artist, and he's got an incredible team around him that help him.
That's very true. And you know what? In seeing his documentary on Netflix when he was on there, that was what I noticed, was that he had such a team in place that he could. Wow, that's an eye opener.
Yeah, and that documentary, by the way, is called "I Am Not Your Woo Woo."
I am not your guru. That's right.
No, you're not your woo woo.
Yeah.
Come on. I snuck that in where you didn't expect it. It was like a missile that came.
Exactly, right?
Anyway, yeah, but I am not your guru. And you're right. He's got an incredible team of people that facilitate and help do this stuff. But for him, it's all about helping people. It's all about the time he is interacting with other people. And so he lives for that. I live for what I do, right? But I don't have, I have an accounting team, and right, we're I have we're building an incredible infrastructure, but I've got a team of people around me, because you don't spend time trying to fix the things you suck at. And a lot of business owners try to do that. Spend time excelling at the things you're great at.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to only marginally get better. Like, I'm not going to become a mathematician ever, but I like being creative, and I can spend time in the creative space all day. Give me a comfy chair and some music to jam to, and like my head goes in weird places, and next thing you know, we're pulling some crazy creative out, and that's the way I'm wired, right? Some people are not wired like that. And operational, right? I don't have operational structure either. So there's only one thing I'm good at, but I play to that strength day in and day out.
That's it. It's so interesting because people always ask me, well, how is it that you're up at 4 a.m.? What are you doing at 4 o'clock in the morning? It's dark outside. You should be asleep. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. At 4 a.m., I have all types of ideas, and I'm writing chapters for books, and I'm just in my space. I'm writing blog posts and all of these different things. So by the time most people get up at 8 o'clock, I've cleared most of the stuff off of my to-do list. And, most places outside aren't even open yet, but it's because that's my space.
For sure. If I didn't have like kids that have to get ready for school and soccer at night and football at night, and like when you have kids, hey, any of you who have kids, you know this, right? I've got 5. Fortunately, the oldest is almost like out of the house. When I say fortunately, we love him, but he's getting closer to medical school, so he'll be gone soon. My other one's graduating high school this year. But when you have kids, you have all these other commitments. So for me, ideally, if I could, and this is going to sound like I'm such an old dude, I'd be in bed at night at 8 o'clock, but I'd be up at 3:30, because for me, that 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. time, I can do so much that right by 9 a.m. I could be done and have accomplished what a normal person, I'm not normal, what a normal person can accomplish between 8 and 6 or 8 and 5. I can accomplish in a very small window. But I needed to be completely focused and devoid of distractions, and that works for some people. It doesn't work for others. It just works for me.
Exactly. And I've seen it more now. It's interesting. I thought I was getting away from my kids never doing sports, but they did other things. And you know how everybody always talks about sports is the most expensive thing. That's a lie. Because if you have a child who's in band and you have to pay for instruments, or now my oldest daughter hit me in junior year, she decided she wanted to do field hockey. So now you have to read paperwork about concussions, those wonderful things. But being able to be at all her games and not having to focus on anything else.
Right.
Not having to worry about what's flowing. Right, exactly. I think that's one of the most powerful experiences that I've had as being a parent, is just, being able to sit there, scream, lose my voice, and look to the left and see a rainbow and just get, googly-eyed over a rainbow and get back to the game. Like those types of things, they stand out for me.
Right. Yeah. I think that, boy, we've had such an interesting, our conversation has started here. It's gone. But I love that, because this is really, I love the unscripted conversation, because you really get to dig deep into different areas. And for people who are starting their business journey, their life as an entrepreneur or an artist, right, wherever you fit in that spectrum, just you have to realize that it's the business side of it isn't everything. And there's the life outside of business. And by the way, I don't believe there's such thing as work-life balance. I think that's a total BS myth. For me, I don't expect anyone on the team to be as work-focused as I am. I may not appear work-focused every moment of every hour of every day, but I'm also sitting there in bed at night on my laptop working on things and creating. And cultivating ideas and working on our new copywriting course and spending time, right? So we work on all of these things. And when an idea hits, years ago, I had yellow notepads next to my bed at like everywhere. Now I recently was convinced to have a yellow notepad handy, and unfortunately I just don't use it enough. Now when I have an idea, I'll say, Alexa, take a note.
Can you tell me all the details? For example, you can
Alexa, cancel.
That Susan's shoe size is 8.
Alexa, cancel. So for me now, when I have an idea in the shower, I just scream at my device, because we have like 11 of them the last I counted throughout our house.
Are you serious?
It's excessive. Everyone's listening to us. The government's listening to us. No, I'm joking. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. But it's really interesting, because to me now, the convenience of voice has helped me become more efficient. And I can do things today that I couldn't do 5-10 years ago with ease. Like, for example, if you ever went to my blog, you would see that I did a very simple post. It's called Just the Tip. And it's a tip on how I use my phone to create my blogs. And I don't blog in the traditional way. So I'm a copywriter, right? I'm a storyteller. But what I do is I open my phone and I go into my notes app. So if you have an Android or an iPhone, all you have to do is open up the app for notes. And then you give it access to your microphone, right? And then so if I'm going to do this live. Watch this. I just opened up a new live blank screen. And now all I have to do, I can enable the microphone, and look at this. It's actually transcribing the words as I'm speaking it. So I am doing two things. I'm creating a blog in written form, right? We're recording, so I now have audio. I can also use this as a visual podcast or as a visual video. So there's a lot of different ways you can create content, and you can do it all in one shot.
So I don't know if y'all just turned into this episode, but Spanky has been dropping gems all throughout this episode. Like, I need you to go back from the beginning and take notes. And it's so interesting, because you said for you it's legal pads, and I looked over and just shook my head, because I have like a stack of notebooks, and and my transition from the notebooks was index cards. And so I would write stuff down on the index card, and then I would go back at the end of the week through my index cards, and as I handled whatever was on the card, I would just rip it up and put it in the recycling. Right. And so it became like a system for me. So I can definitely relate there. But when I tell you guys that he has been dropping gems all throughout this episode, that was just another gem. Because people always complain, oh my goodness, I don't have enough time. Oh, that's a lie. You have the time. We're just not using it properly. And so, it's learning those different things can definitely take you to a whole nother level. Now, what I do want to ask you, and I ask this for everybody that comes on to the show, is that in this journey, have you had any blunders, any moments that you can look back right now and say, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best choice?
No, I'm perfect. No, I'm kidding. No, oh my gosh. We've had tons of them, and tons of missteps and things along the way that have not gone as planned. When you start, especially when you start something and you didn't plan to start it, there are a lot of loose ends and a lot of things that you don't think about. And, I'll share this with you, because I think it's really important for those of you watching, listening, catching this today, tomorrow, next year. If you are married or in a relationship with someone, one of the biggest challenges of growing something remarkable is that your energy is really focused in that area. Your energy and your commitment to that is really hyper-focused, right? And I remember this moment because I can feel the pain of it. My wife and I, back in the beginning, the office for AdZombies was in my home. And back in the early stages, Sean, my friend who's in the other office, and our head copywriter was sitting next to me. We had a couple of workstations in the house, and so he'd be in the house every day. But our work days were pretty horrendous in the beginning because we didn't have processes. Things were broken, and it took us a lot more time to figure stuff out. And we had some days where, I was grinding from 5 a.m. to midnight. And this one night, Allison walks into the office, and the kids were watching TV or on their devices, doing Snapchats and Instagram. And so they were busy. And she came into the office and sat down in Sean's chair and rolled over to me on the chair. And we both started crying because we were so neglectful of our relationship. And we were living parallel lives in the same house where I was doing this and she was doing that. And our paths stopped crossing for a while. And we recognized that was really dangerous, especially, when you're, I've been married now almost 25 years. So almost half of my life I've been married. And we've recognized how much stress and strain the business had put, or that we allowed the business to put on our marriage. And we went and had what we call a tune-up. We went in and saw a therapist that we have gone to many times over the course of our marriage for a tune-up. And that was helpful. And it was great to reconnect with her. And now we have a standing date every week, and we don't let those things get in the way. And it's difficult because at times you do get so busy, or like at times next week I'm traveling and I'm going to be gone most of the week. We'll miss those dates, but I won't miss a call with her and say, hey, thinking about you, making sure that you got to stay connected to that partner. And whether it's a wife, a husband, whatever the relationship is, never let that relationship suffer as your business builds.
Okay, so everybody can go get their tissues now. Because that, first of all, it was so real. For me as a single mother, it was my children. And, when I rebranded and became the face of my brand, going and speaking on stages and traveling to do events, and it was almost like at least 2 weekends out the month I was gone. And I turned around and I saw that my children's grades had started slipping, other stuff had started slipping, and I said, okay, wait. This is not going to work.
Right. We
worked really hard to get, I can say it because I'm biased, but my kids are like the greatest. And
I've heard that.
Yeah, I'm biased. My kids are the greatest. But I was able to send my youngest daughter to Greece. My little sister just came back from Disney World, and I've been able to do things for them, but I never wanted to lose the foundation. And by me being out and doing so much and not really being focused on, again, there is no balance.
Right.
I'm either going to shut things down here so I can pay attention to what's going on here, or I'm going to do, one or the other. Something's going to get neglected. And so I had to start going back and fixing my time.
Mm-hmm. See, just remember, like when you're in a business, there's a lot of balls that you can juggle, right? Mm-hmm. And I have this ball sitting on my desk. It's just coincidental that I have it. It wasn't a prop that was here for me to say this, but actually I've got another ball too. So I've got 2 balls. Okay.
That was a much bigger one.
Well, so I use this for my back. And so like a lot of times I'll be sitting in the office and I'll drop it behind my back and, roll my back out, whatever. Anyway, but as a business owner, these 2 balls represent 2 of the areas of your life, right? So one of them is family, then there's the business, there's finances, right? There's friendships. You can juggle all of these balls and they're all made of glass. But when you drop the one that is your family, that is the foundation of your existence, and that shatters, you can't fix it. All the other ones, when they hit the ground, you can fix. This one, you can't fix. So, that got really heady and really deep, but it's true. And so, stay connected to your spouse, your partner, stay connected to your family, and just know that if you have a shitty day today, it's going to be better tomorrow, but you choose to make it what it is. And you can choose to fix something that's not right in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the choice because it's your business, right? You get the choice of how you use that time and how you spend that time with that person. Use it wisely. And don't forget that as you're building your empire, you got a cheerleader in the corner over there. And that's an important cheerleader.
That's right. Yeah. Guys, I don't know if you felt the power of this particular episode, but again, this is why I bring you the guests that come on, because I never want you to think that the journey is going to be 100% easy. I never want you to think that it's all glitter and glam. And I definitely don't want you to get kind of railroaded by all of the scams that are out there. But when it comes to writing ads, it's about storytelling. When it comes to finding somebody that can do it for you, it's about finding somebody who this is their passion, because that makes a difference. You can see it in the copy that's being written. You can hear it, in the video that's being made. All of those things are very important for you to be able to connect with your target audience. And we know that as a speaker and author, we always say, as a speaker and author, you're also an entrepreneur, you are also a business owner. And there's no way around that unless you want to be a broke speaker or author. By all means, that's your personal decision, personal preference. But you definitely have to take into consideration what it means to have the right people on your team as you're moving towards success. So can let them know how they can reach out to you, how they can get the book. I know the book is on Amazon, but if you have it on your website, how they can get a signed possible copy of the book. That part.
Okay.
Oh, and wait, are you still in New York as well?
No. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I wanted to feel like what it was like to live in hell.
Oh, beautiful.
So I moved to Phoenix back in '91, and I question in the summertime my sanity for doing that. But it's where I've started and raised my family. So I'm kind of yes, I'm from New York, but I live in Arizona now. So how do you get in touch with me? Well, if you want to follow my company, my brand, it's AdZombies, and you can find us on Facebook, on the web, AdZombies.com. But pick any of the social platforms that you can envision in your head: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and it's /AdZombies, right? And then if you want to follow me and some of the new stuff that we're going to be putting out, that I'm going to be putting out content-wise, you can just follow, ready for this one, SpankyMoskowitz.com. Yes, because Spanky.com is a porno site, and I do not want to send people there. And so you muted yourself because you knew something was going to happen. So I actually tried to get the URL, but then I'm like, I'm going to get all these angry people going, what happened to our site? Now there's some dude who's balding and he's motivating me. What happened to my hot chicks? Weird thing.
Oh, that would be a weird experience.
Yeah, so you can look for my name, KenMoskowitz.com or SpankyMoskowitz.com. They both go to the same place. And we're gonna be starting to produce. I've got a new podcast and video series coming out starting, and it's called TYC, 3 Yellow Chairs, and that's because 3 yellow chairs in our main room, in our conference room, that's where all the great storytelling, connections, and things happen. And so TYC is all about building your business, your brand, and really life, and talking about the things that are important in life. So I'm excited about that. And I wish I could turn this so you could see what's going on in that other room right now, because it's really looking dope.
I know that it is. Oh my goodness. This has been an absolutely amazing episode. I thank you to everybody who's been in the studio audience with us live. They've been over there chatting it up. They said, this is good stuff. Yes, it was. Yes, indeed. And one of the comments was, when he lost that amount of money, I would have fainted. I said, I would have fainted. And another person said, yeah, I would have fainted as well.
I would have had a defibrillator on myself. Clear! Just
exactly. Exactly. So with that being said, guys, we appreciate you guys because, of course, if there were no Speakeasy podcast listeners, there would be no Speakeasy podcast. So with that being said, I love to hear how this particular episode resonated with you. And if you are a speaker or an author, I would love for you to come on and tell us about your journey as well. Why? Because guess what? There's somebody somewhere that can learn from your experiences. With that being said, I am your host, Altavis Pelzer, and I look forward to hearing and talking and seeing, well, possibly not seeing, but you get the deal. Next time when we come back with another episode of the Speakeasy podcast. So guys, until next time, you guys don't forget to press it out. See ya.